Going. This is Max. I am the roaster and owner of Wild Sage Coffee Roasters. Right now I'm going to do my first cupping of some coffees that just got roasted on the new Mill City 1 kilo roaster. Set up for cupping at home. I've got my beans that are dated and they were roasted about 24 hours ago. I've got 2 cups that I'm going to use for actually cupping. These cups hold about 1 cup of water. The cupping protocol is 150 milliliters of water for 8.25 grams of coffee. So I'm going to use 1.5 times the amount of coffee and 1.5 times the amount of water. So I'm going to use about 1 cup of water for about 12.4 grams of coffee. I've got 2 spoons that I'm going to use. I've got a cup that I'm going to put some hot water in, a cup that I'm going to use for pulling the grounds off and also spitting. If you want to spit, I could use some coffee right now, so I'm probably going to drink coffee. I've also got my cupping protocols through SCA. I've got a taster's flavor wheel also through the SCA. This one is actually from Counterculture though. And then I've actually got my roast profiles, which is super nice, from Roast Path on my Mill City roaster. I can actually just print out all the details, see where my gas temp, my gas setting was, my air setting, see what my bean temp, my environmental temp, check out my rate of rise profile. And yeah, I'm just trying to get in the hang of this, so bear with me. I'm going to go grind this coffee. I'm going to weigh it whole bean, grind it at a medium coarse setting, heat up my water on my kettle that's in my kitchen right over there, and then we will get going with a little cupping. All right, so I've got my water heated up. I heated it up about 205 degrees just because I knew I'd be talking. It'll cool down. Got my coffee ground on a little bit coarser than the medium setting on my little cheap bird grinder. I've got a cup with 2 spoons and some hot water, an empty cup. I've got an evaluation form from Boot Coffee, and I've got my roast profile right here. I'll try to upload pictures of those so you can see what they look like. And I've got my cupping protocols. I am not going to read through this. It's pretty easy to find. Kind of most important parts is the water needs to be 200 degrees. The cupping should be done within 24 hours of roasting the coffee. It should be allowed to rest for at least 8 hours, so don't cup it immediately after you roast it. Optimum ratio is 8.25 grams of coffee for 150 milliliters of water. And water should be filtered at 125 to 175 parts per million, but should not be less than 100 parts per million or more than 250. So that makes sense because it gives you the range. And then it's got some other things for analyzing quality of the coffee. So I'm going to kind of wing it a little bit here. I've got a timer going, so I'm going to go ahead and pour these coffees. I should clarify that this is one of my first cuppings, so bear with me if I'm all over the place and saying some wrong stuff. I'm not an expert by any means. I'm just motivated to learn. Yeah, so now essentially we're going to let these sit for about 4 minutes. Normally I would have cupping bowls, which are small ceramic bowls, and I would fill them up to the very top, making sure to fill them up exactly. I don't have those at the moment. They're on their way, as well as my cupping spoons. So for right now, we're just going to kind of wing it. We're going to try to taste this coffee and see if we can taste anything, which most of the time I just taste strong notes of coffee. So yeah, bear with me. About 4 minutes. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take one of these spoons out of the water and I'm going to break the crust. So I'm essentially gonna push through while I smell the coffee and give it a few swirls and let the foam run off the back. That's what the directions said, so that's what I'm doing. I didn't create this this system. Now I'm gonna rinse my spoon off just so I'm not mixing the coffees, and do the same thing. So, first impressions, smelling a little bit of sweetness. Maybe I'll scoot these apart a little bit so I'm not smelling both at the same time. Yeah, I'm definitely getting maybe like some, I don't know. This is where it's super hard for me, is like to figure out exactly what I'm smelling. It's really easy to say, oh, I'm smelling a peach when I'm eating a peach, but when I'm smelling coffee and trying to say, oh, I'm smelling papaya, it's a little more challenging. But I'm just gonna say there's definitely some chocolate, which I know is just like almost like a cop out, but I guess chocolate has a very distinct smell. And there's definitely like some deeper sweetness, maybe like a caramel in there. And maybe like some lemon. Maybe that might sound super contradictory, but that's definitely kind of what I'm smelling. So yeah, now we wait for the coffees to cool enough to taste them. So essentially, like when I can pick up these glasses and not burn my hands, I'll know that I can taste it and start analyzing the coffee. So yeah, that'll be the next step. Next step, the coffee is pretty much cooled. So I'm going to, obviously, I need to grade it for fragrance and aroma. I believe that fragrance is the smell of the dry coffee. The aroma is the smell of the wet coffee. And I'm gonna say it smells good. It's got some sweetness to it, which smells super nice. So I'm gonna grade it. I'm just gonna grade it at like an 8.25. So now we're gonna take both of these spoons and we're gonna try to scoop off all the grounds off the top using 2 spoons. A normal cupping bowl is a little wider, and cupping spoons kind of fit perfectly to pull everything off, but we're gonna give it a shot with this and see what happens. Worked pretty well. We're gonna do the second one now. Just trying to get the kind of the foam and any excess grounds that are at the top, so then when we're going to taste the coffee, it's not in our mouth, essentially. So make sure my spoon's nice and clean. I'm just gonna try to skim a little coffee and slurp it. And grade it based on the flavor. I would say it doesn't have really any bad flavors going on. So that's a good start. It's got a little bit of bitterness, a little bit of sweetness, and definitely a little acidity. Like I can kind of feel it, like almost like tingling on my tongue. So flavor, I'm gonna say like sweet and chocolate, because chocolate's kind of bitter. And I'm My options are sweet, sour, salt, delicate, rich, intense, pungent, musty, past crop, woody, flat, greenish, fruity and sweet, balanced, exotic, chocolate, spicy, and nutty. I'm gonna go sweet, chocolate, and nutty. The aftertaste is clean. It doesn't linger in the back of my mouth. The acidity is, I feel like the acidity is good. I'd say it's pretty vibrant acidity. And I think I'm supposed to be grading these things at different times depending on how cool the coffee is, but in terms of making this video, I'm gonna try to kind of grade them in order. The mouthfeel, how does it feel in my mouth? I would say it's pretty, I would say the body's not super intense. It's definitely not like tea, but there's a little bit of like a little bit of a chalkiness to it. The balance overall, I feel like, is pretty good. It's not like over intense in any one direction. Like it's not like super sweet or super earthy and there's like no acidity, or there's no sweetness and it's super bitter. I'd say the balance is pretty good. I'm gonna give it an 8.5 on balance. The mouthfeel, I'm gonna give it like a 7.5 just because a little bit of that chalkiness. I might be grading it a little harshly, but I feel like I'd rather do that because it's coffee that I roasted than just say it's delicious because I roasted it. And the flavor's pretty good. Tastes like coffee for sure, you know? And we're gonna give it like an 8.25. The overall score, I'm just gonna say we've got most of them are over 8. We got 1.8. We got a 7.5 on mouthfeel, 8.5 on balance. I'm gonna say we're at about an 8. I feel like that's pretty good. And sweetness, I believe we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 kind of grading scales, horizontal, and then we've got sweetness, clean cup, and uniformity. So I think these get 2 points up to 10 for each one. So that would be the last 30 points after our other seven evaluations. I'm gonna wait a little bit to do those just to let it cool and kind of see what changes. And I'm gonna taste this other one. Got to make sure to slurp as loud as possible. While you're slurping, in through the mouth, exhale through your nose. Apparently that does something with the olfactory system and it helps you to pick up more flavors, which I can't really pick up at all, but hopefully moving forward I'll get better and better at this. So definitely the mouthfeel feels good. The flavor is good. It's got a little bit of a bitterness to it for sure, which, you know what I mean? You could say like dark chocolate or caramel. Caramel's technically bitter, I guess. The aftertaste, it's got a little bit of an aftertaste, but it's nothing too bad. Coffee is bitter. I mean, that's like one of the defining attributes of coffee is its bitterness, you know, so I'm not gonna grade it super harshly on that. My flavor though, I'm gonna definitely get some chocolate, some nuts, and there's some sweetness in there. There might even be a little bit of like woodiness in there, earthiness, I guess. And maybe that's coming from the roast, maybe that's coming from the coffee. This is a Brazil Salmo Plus. And yeah, it is, I think, naturally going to be kind of nutty, which maybe I will learn how to change in future roasting. But like I said, I'm still figuring out this new roaster and roast path software. Excuse me. The aftertaste is aftertaste. The aftertaste is pretty mellow. I mean, it's got a little bit, but it's not overpowering. It's not like super bitter, like you just took a shot of cough syrup, or I guess that would be like intensity. But yeah, it's not super intense in that way. So I'm also gonna give it an 8 there. I'm gonna say that the aftertaste was clean. I think clean's a pretty good indicator. A little bit sweet, maybe some resin. A little bit of resin, you know, kind of that lingering, a slight amount of that. I don't know if I should mark it, but I did. The acidity is really nice on it. I'm gonna give that an 8.5. And the mouthfeel is also pretty good as it cools a little bit, since this one's a little cooler. It seems like a little bit of that chalkiness I described is kind of gone now. So I'm gonna give it like an 8.5 on mouthfeel, probably an 8.5 on balance, and the overall I'm gonna give it like an 8.25. And now I'm gonna go back to the first one, and I'm gonna look at sweetness and clean cup. Sweetness, I'm gonna give it an 8. Clean cup, I'm gonna give it a 6. And uniformity, they're both pretty similar, so I'm gonna just give both of those a 10 because I'm not that good at analyzing it yet. And the second one, the sweetness is definitely good. The clean cup seems a little better on this one, but maybe because it's slightly cooler, so I'm gonna give sweetness an 8, clean cup an 8, and uniformity a 10. And then I just need to add up my scores. Which I will do, and I will post a picture of it, but essentially you just add up each of the numbers, giving it an overall score at the end. If your score, I believe it's like if your score is like in like the 70 range or so, let me verify on my cupping protocol. It kind of gives us a range. So scoring anything 6 means it's good, 7 means it's very good, 8 means it's excellent, 9 means it's outstanding. So maybe my scoring was a little bit off. I'm not sure. Yeah, so I'm gonna add all these up and we will see where we are at. I will post a picture of this, hopefully, so you can kind of see how my scoring went. And hopefully I'll be able to score more coffees in the future and just get better and better at it. Thanks for watching.